So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we're going over a quick topic test with a collection of some GCSE exam style questions on statistical measures 1 at foundation level. Now a copy of the questions for you to have an attempt at before watching through this video is available for you to download by click on the link in the description, which I strongly recommend you do to see how much understanding you have on this topic. Now it's worth mentioning that statistics can appear and probably will appear in some shape or form on both the calculator and the non-calculator paper, so it all depends on, and it's not, I would say it's not a particular question that would appear on one then the other. It all depends on the numbers being used, so you'll tend to find that the numbers being used on a non-calculator question will be relatively easy, whereas on a calculator they probably include decimals and be a little bit more complex. So let's get started on this test. So the first question says, below is a list of data, and the first thing we need to do is calculate the mean. So for this, what we need to do first is to just recognize, how do we calculate the mean? Well, we do that by adding up all the numbers and dividing by how many numbers we've got. Now I can see from this we've got 10 numbers. Now the numbers are single digit, so all I need to do is simply add all those numbers up, either without using a calculator or with a calculator, and I should find that the total is 40, and we've got the number of numbers, which is 10, so then the mean is going to be 40 divided by 10, which gives me an answer of 4. The next question then says to work out the mode. Now the mode is the number that appears the most, or the number that is the most frequent. So here you can see that I've got more ones than any other number in that list, and so the mode is going to be 1. The next question then looks at the mean from a frequency table, and it's not a group frequency table. There's two types of tables you can have. This is a frequency table, and so for this the question is asking us to work out the mean number of siblings in Sally's class. Now what you want to try and do with these types of questions is recognize what your answer should look like. So here you can see that the number of siblings with the highest frequency is going to be 2, so I'm expecting an answer that is close to 2. So that's how I can check to make sure. Now for this, what I need to do first is I need to create an FX column, which is why they've given me this extra column. And I create an FX column by simply multiplying the first column and the second column numbers together. So if I do that, so 0 times 4 is 0, 1 times 10 is 10, 2 times 12 is 24, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 0 is 0, and 5 times 1 is 5. Now the next thing for me then to do is to work out a total. So for this, what I then need to do is, and actually need to do a total for both those two columns, and so let's write total here. And so if I add up the total frequency, that's 4 plus 10, which is 14, plus 12, which is 26, and then 29, 30. And then if I add up these numbers, I've got 34, 43, and then I've got 48. So then from this, what I then need to do is to work out the mean. Now the formula for the mean is the sum of, or the total of fx over the sum of f. So this column here is the total fx column, and this is the total frequency column. So then working out the mean, that's going to be 48 divided by 30, and with this I can either simplify it, so it's going to be 24 over 15, which is going to be 8 over 5, which I'm going to assume is going to be 1.6, which it is, and which is relatively close to 2, so I can accept that as my answer. Moving on to question 3, so now we move on to grouped data. So it says Ben catches a train to work in the morning. This table shows the time in minutes the train was late over a period of 20 days. Estimate the mean number of minutes the train was late. So we know that from this, we know that it says that the total is 20, so that's going to be that there. Now the reason why they've given us two columns is because we now need to work out two things, hence why it's worth 4 marks compared to the previous question, which was only worth 3. So for this, what I need to do is to create a midpoint column, and then I need my fx column. So for this, what we need to do is our midpoint. Now to work out the midpoint, all you need to do is simply add the lower bound and the upper bound together and divide by 2. So here I've got 0 plus 5 is 5, divided by 2 is 2.5. 5 plus 10 is 15, half that is 7.5. 10 plus 15 is 25, divide that by 2, you get 12.5. And for the next one, we get 17.5. Now to create our fx column, rather than multiplying the first column by the second, which we can't do because we've got groups, instead we do the second column multiplied by the midpoint. So if we multiply those, in which I'm going to have to reach out for my calculator for this one because it simply involves decimal numbers. So for the first one we get 30. For the second one we get 37.5. And we get 12.1. And then 17.5 times 2 is 35. And then all I then need to do is then work out a total of my fx. So 30 plus 37.5 plus 12.5 plus 35 gives me an answer of 115. So therefore then the estimated mean, and the reason why it's estimated is because we've got group data, and it's not estimated mean for the previous question because we didn't have groups. So then it's going to be the same formula, which is the total of the fx divided by the total frequency. So it's going to be 115 divided by 20, and 115 divided by 20 gives me an answer of 5.75. Does that seem fair? Well, yes, because the most popular group was the first one, and the second popular was the next group along. So you'd expect an answer in that sort of group. And so 5.75 is not a million miles away from 5, so that does look like an accurate answer. And so the next thing we then need to do is just write this answer using the units, which I just scrolled across. It asks for minutes, so it's going to be either 5.75 minutes, or you could write it as 5 3/4 minutes, or you could even write it as 5 minutes and 45 seconds. However, I would probably go for either this answer and this answer, simply because it doesn't ask for seconds. But I would say if it did, then you just need to know that 3/4 of a minute is 45 seconds. But I would say either this answer or this answer would suffice nicely to get the full marks.